Welcome to High Capacity, the podcast that helps you expand your nervous system's capacity so you can have the career and the family and the goals and actually enjoy them. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist. If your life is full by every measure and your nervous system is feeling it, this is your show. Every Tuesday, I'm here to unpack the nervous system science behind why you feel wired, overwhelmed, and depleted, and give you real tools to actually do something about it. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Michelle here. Welcome to High Capacity. We're going to talk about things that we may have thought were parts of our personality today on the podcast that actually aren't. And man, in the last, 6 to 8 years, maybe it might have been, being in that postpartum time after having babies back to back. And then definitely amping up as I approached 40 and just really starting to disentangle, I guess, for lack of a better word, so many things about my identity. I feel like I went through something like that in my teen years. We probably all did. And then also to a certain extent in my 20s, although I feel like when I look back at my 20s, there's a part of it that feels really cringe because I was just like very certain about myself and certain things, some of which I think was good. Other parts of it were extremely naive and cringy, frankly. And then now as I'm like approaching, I'm 40 now, but just in the last like 2 or 3 years as I've approached 40, I'm just realizing that so many things that I thought were just like how I am aren't actually, and they're actually really tied to my nervous system and things that I've just experienced growing up. And these are all adaptations and patterns that I've taken on. So I wanted to go through some of those today because I think you guys are a lot like me. And I think a lot of these are going to resonate. And once I started to see like, oh, I'm actually not X or I'm actually not Y, that's actually a compensation I've taken on. And I can actually learn how to interrupt that and start rewiring it, because once I see it, right, then I can hold it up and be like, okay, is this still serving me? And if it is, then I get to choose if I want to continue doing it. But if I hold it up and I'm like, you know what? I needed that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago. But I don't need that anymore. My life is different, right? I'm more mature. I'm more resourced. I'm wiser. I have just different things going on. Then I can choose to let it go. Okay. So I want to give you that same opportunity today. But we're going to go through 5 different things that I think a lot of us have thought were parts of our personality. And I just want us to get curious about it and see if there are, parts of our personality that we can just re-examine and just get like curious, bring it to light and be like, hey, is this actually me? Like me? Or is this something that I've taken on and I'm starting to understand why? So I'm the oldest of 5 kids, okay? The oldest daughter. I was always, when I say always, I'm talking about like middle school and high school, the one who got all the awards. I graduated at the top of my class. I was a high school athlete. I went to college on an academic scholarship, and then I went to law school. And if you had asked me to describe myself growing up, I would have told you like I was driven and I was high achieving and I was productive and type A and overachiever, and like all that stuff would have been at the top of my list because that's who I thought I was, right? I thought that was my personality. I'm just like a type A, whatever. What I didn't see for a really long time was how much of that striving was actually just me and my nervous system just so desperately wanting to be seen and acknowledged and loved and accepted and applauded. And every accomplishment was also a quiet little bid for like, hey, do you see me now? Right? Am I doing enough? Do you see me like standing out? There's 5 kids, right? There's a lot going on in the mix here. And I guess that's just how my nervous system adapted to get the things that I needed when I was a kid. Doesn't mean it was wrong or bad. It wasn't manipulative, but it wasn't really my personality, or at least the way I wore it as an identity, right? It was a nervous system strategy. So today we're going to look at 5 things I think a lot of women have filed under like, this is just how I am. And what's actually going on underneath each one. And then I just want to talk a little bit about what's the nervous system strategy that was built probably really early on, most likely in childhood. And it worked so well that we just kept doing these things without realizing it, right? All of this is subconscious over and over and over again until it became automatic. So a lot of these are also going to be things that show up depending on what your capacity pattern is. So our capacity patterns are basically what we automatically default to anytime our nervous system feels stressed, overwhelmed, uncomfortable, left out, fears being embarrassed, like any sort of threat like that, right? Okay. When our nervous system senses that, it will automatically send us into a pattern to respond to whatever that threat is. So if we fear that no one sees us and we're not going to be appreciated and we feel like we're not worthy if we don't show up as the top of everything, then it makes a lot of sense, right? That our little developing nervous systems would like start playing around with and trying and experimenting a pattern of like, hey, what happens if I overachieve? What happens if I get really good grades? What happens if I'm the starting, whatever, power forward on the basketball team? What happens if, and then if it works, right? If we get what it is that our nervous system thinks we needed, our nervous system files that away and it's like, okay, we're going to try that again next time. Okay. And then we do that over and over and over again. And it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a pattern, and it becomes something that we think was part of our personality. So there's 5 different capacity patterns, and depending on which pattern you tend to run as a primary pattern is going to have a big impact on some of these things that we talk about. So if you don't know what your capacity pattern is yet, you can go take the quiz. There's a link for it in the show notes. It should take you 2 or 3 minutes. But then when you take the quiz, it'll give you what your primary personality pattern probably is, okay? And when you're on that results page, you can read through it. And then all the way at the bottom, I also included links to the 4 other patterns. So you could check those out too, because oftentimes we run a primary pattern, and most of us tend to also run a secondary pattern, and some of us also run a third. So it's kind of interesting to kind of read through them and be like, okay, I think I do this a lot of times, but sometimes I also do this too, because all of these things formed somewhere, right? At some point, they helped to keep us safe. And then it became so consistent so early that it really started to feel like our identity rather than something we were strategically choosing. So let's go through 5 of them. There's obviously so many different things out there that people think are their personality that probably aren't, but these are 5 that I think show up a lot in our community. The first one is kind of what I was talking about previously, being that overachiever. And it's the one I know best because, it's kind of annoying and I roll my eyes at, past versions of myself, but I know it best because it's mine and it's something I've had to work through. And what does it look like? It can look like for me, it looked like relentless productivity, right? I was always doing something or getting something done. Even if I was let's say on a road trip and in the car and had my phone, I was researching something, right? I was planning something. I was just always filling every single moment with something that felt productive. And achievement was definitely a big part of my identity. I don't think that was healthy, but I'm just being honest, right? I think I put a lot of pride or satisfaction into I've, achieved this. I've built this. And I'm saying that all in air quotes. I know you guys are listening, but because it's ridiculous when I look back, right? I didn't do any of this stuff on my own. But I was really also uncomfortable with resting. It wasn't just I didn't have time to rest or I didn't think it was productive, but if I felt like I had to slow down or God forbid, do nothing productive, and I say that in quotes too, then it was almost like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. It was so uncomfortable when there was nothing to accomplish and get done. Okay. So much of this pattern for me was tied to self-worth, right? My worth, and I didn't realize any of this until 7-8 years ago, but for so long, my worth, and I mean that by am I valuable to this group of people? Okay. That just kind of rose and fell depending on my output. So if any of that resonates with you, right? Being an overachiever, high productivity, getting stuff done, difficulty resting, what's happening in the nervous system is that over time, achievement kind of becomes the nervous system's primary safety signal. So if I'm producing and I'm performing and I'm succeeding, then those will generate kind of like a hit of relief, right? It's like, oh, okay, we can exhale now. We're doing the things that keep us safe and loved. And anytime that we slow down or we make a mistake or something goes sideways or we're not acknowledged as the best of the best and we don't win the award or we don't make the team or whatever, right? Then all of a sudden, that feeling of safety just gets stripped. It's gone. So stillness doesn't feel peaceful. Making mistakes feels really scary. Not being the best, not giving our best effort, things not going, like all of that feels really exposed. And a lot of times where this originates is that, I mean, think about kids, right? Of course, our children, I'm thinking about my children, that is like, love and attention and approval. When you're a kid, that's everything. And sometimes we can be raised in environments, whether explicitly or not, for some reason, our little nervous system feels like the love and the attention and the approval is conditional on how I perform. Or maybe it's not even that explicit. And it's like, I just know I actually get these things even more so when I do perform, right? Like if I get the good grades, then I get noticed. If I, meet the achievement or do the thing, I get celebrated. And somewhere in there, what happens is that the wires kind of just get crossed. And we start to learn and believe that our value is what we produce. Okay. So if any of this resonates, I just want you to start to notice the discomfort that you feel the next time that you finish something and you feel that pull to like either immediately start the next thing or to go back and like perfect it and make it better and like grow the efficiency and all of that stuff, right? All of those urges showing up. And I don't want you to necessarily do anything about it yet, but just kind of start to notice where that urge comes up to perform and do so well. And I'm not talking about having a spirit of excellence, right? I think that's really valuable. But I think there's a fine line in the energy behind it. Am I so desperate to overachieve and prove myself and get stuff done and be productive because I don't feel safe otherwise, right? Subconsciously, and like something bad might happen? Or am I really grounded and present in this? And I know everything's going to be okay, but I do have a certain standard for what I accept for myself and others, right? As far as excellence goes, I think there's a fine line there. So notice it the next time it comes up and just notice it. Like, can you stay in that discomfort? Can you stay in that gap for 20 seconds, 30 seconds before you move on? Because that noticing and then even staying in the discomfort of that gap, that's where that rewiring process is going to begin. So that's the first one. The second is the control freak. Okay. And I think, especially postpartum, I think about it. And obviously there was a lot at stake. So it makes a lot of sense that this pattern would have come up for me at this time. But man, how does it show up? It might show up with difficulty delegating things, right? You might not call yourself a control freak, but like if you feel like you have to do everything in your home and in your workspace or in your community or on the PTA or like wherever you have some sort of leadership role, if you keep a lot of the things to yourself and have a really hard time delegating, right? This might be true for you. Maybe it shows up like needing to know all the details of a plan, right? You're going on a weekend getaway and like you're not the one who planned it. Maybe you're going with friends or something, but you need to know the whole itinerary. You need to know the timeline. You need to know the contingencies. You just feel so uncomfortable when things are uncertain or unpredictable or when someone else is in charge. Ask me how I know. If someone else is in charge of anything, frankly, that really affects you. So what's happening in our nervous system with this is that control is a sympathetic strategy. So what I mean by that is it's that fight or flight energy of actually the fight, right? Mobilizing toward the threat. I'm not like taking my fists out, but I'm going to manage every single variable that might produce any sort of threat, right? So when the environment feels controlled, our nervous system's like, we got this, and it reads as safety. And when it doesn't, alarm bells go off, right? Even over things that are genuinely low stakes aren't actually a big deal. So a lot of times this can come from a couple different places, but it might come from an early environment that was unpredictable. So maybe there were caretakers or people in your life who you were supposed to be able to rely on and depend on. And they dropped the ball for whatever reason, right? Maybe there were health issues. Maybe there was stuff in your caregiver's marriage and like stuff went sideways and they just couldn't be there for you in the way that they were supposed to. So that felt really unpredictable, or maybe it felt chaotic, or maybe things kind of went wrong when you weren't the one who was in control and making the decisions and getting the things done. You weren't the one behind the wheel. And what happens is that then control can kind of become an antidote to that felt sense of like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable, or it doesn't feel right, or it's so painful. And it has nothing to do with logic. It's just that we learn over time, like, hey, if I'm going to rely on anyone to get anything done, it's going to be me, right? Because inherently there's something in here where trusting other people is really hard to do. So I know I can trust myself. I know I'll show up for me. I know I'll get the things done. So all of a sudden I have to become, the independent one who just like gets all the things done and holds all the things and controls all the things. So if that resonates with you, this kind of control thing, let's just go back to the beginning of this. That's actually not your personality. Okay. So like just take any way you feel about that. Like, man, I'm just so controlling, or I don't want to micromanage, or my husband says I'm nagging, or whoa, pause. Okay. Let's find some compassion, because there's a reason why we all do the things that we do. Okay. So if this resonates, maybe pick some low stakes thing this week and deliberately delegate it. Like release the control over it. Have someone else take it on. And then it's like, all right, my kids are going to handle this. I ain't going to touch it or think about it this week. Right. Or like, okay, my husband says he's going to coordinate the whatever spring break travel plans for our family, or he's going to plan dinner for, Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. Like, is there something low stakes that you can just like hands off? Let someone else choose the restaurant, right? Let someone else load the dishwasher the way that they do. That drives you nuts, but it's their way. And, worse, that thing that happens, you run the dishwasher again, okay? If the stuff doesn't get clean. Can you let them handle something or make decisions without your input? Is it going to be uncomfortable? Of course it is, because it's new. Notice what happens in your body, because that discomfort is information, okay? Your nervous system is trying to override everything, panicking and being like, whoa, something bad's really going to happen. But your rational mind, right? If you just sit for a minute and think about this, you can show your body like, hey, someone else is choosing the restaurant. We're not under threat. We're not being chased by a lion, right? Everything's going to be okay. This isn't a problem that we actually, I have to get involved in. I don't have to get involved in this, okay? So that's the second one, being controlling. The third one, man, I feel like I can resonate with all of these. The third one is people pleasing. Okay. I think that my primary capacity pattern is the architect. So I definitely relate with that overachiever one. You guys have heard me talk about that. My secondary pattern is the caretaker. Okay. So when we talk about people pleasing, that is quintessential caretaker pattern. I've done a lot of work here. I actually noticed this weekend, and not that it was like the first time I've noticed in years, but like something came up this weekend where I'm like, oh, I still have a lot of work to do here. And that is life. Okay. So how might this be showing up? I think the obvious way is that when we are people pleasers, or when we are people pleasing, it often shows up as a difficulty saying no, right? We don't want to let anyone down. We don't want to disappoint anyone. We don't want anyone else to feel like they have to carry a bigger burden because we didn't show up or do our part or offer to help or what have you. There's a big part of that I think that's tied up in just being known as, and fill in the blank for whatever it is for you. I want to be known as the helpful one. I want to be known as the dependable one. It feels good, right? To be the one who goes above and beyond. And I think a lot of times that reputation can get like tangled up with your sense of worth. Am I saying that I don't want to be helpful or dependable or go above and beyond? No. But what I'm saying is that I don't want to do those things because I freak out and feel so uncomfortable if I don't do those things, right? Like, I don't want to be helpful because if I'm not helpful, I feel really, really guilty and crappy, and I only feel connected to people when I'm helpful to them. I want to be helpful because I choose to be helpful. And then if I choose to be helpful in this way or not, my identity and my worth and my nervous system aren't just going to go whack, okay? Two very different energies there. So like what I noticed this weekend is that my husband was not in a good mood. And immediately this urge came up in me to fix it, right? How am I going to manage his emotional state? What do I need to do? What do I need to say? What do I need to make sure that the kids are doing or not doing? Does the volume in the house need to go down? Do we need to get outside? Is he bored? Because it was, and it sounds insane, like talking about it and saying it out loud. But there was something in my body that felt like only if I could manage his emotional state, and by extension our home, so he could feel okay, then like finally I could exhale, okay? We've been together for 20 years. This is not this is not new, but I've healed a lot of this and I'm still working on it because helpfulness and my worth for so long had become the same thing in my nervous system. So what's happening in the nervous system, if this feels resonant for you, is a fawn response, okay? We know fight, flight, freeze, and fawning, okay? Their nervous system seeks safety through keeping others happy, appeasement, keeping others regulated. That's a way of maintaining our own safety in the relationship. So if we say no, or we risk someone else's disappointment, or someone we love around us isn't having the best day ever, that registers as a genuine threat in our nervous system. It's not that it's just an uncomfortable moment. And where does this come from? I mean, it's not hard to imagine, but a lot of times it comes from environments where connection felt conditional. So if we were being the easy kid or the helpful kid or the undemanding kid, then that kept us safely attached to our parents, right? Maybe they had a lot going on. Maybe they were dealing with our siblings who were handfuls. And if we could just be the easy, helpful ones, then that made life easier for everyone, right? Or maybe we never saw boundaries modeled, or boundaries felt dangerous, or they were talked about poorly in our homes because there was kind of this risk of disconnection. I think it can come up other ways too, but those are common ways, okay? So if this feels true for you, if you've noticed patterns of people pleasing and you've thought that's just like how I am, right? It's just how I am. I'm just such a people pleaser. Can you practice one small no this week? Something small, low stakes, just like when we talked about control, low stakes, right? And when you feel the urge to fold and justify and explain and apologize, notice it, and then bite your tongue, right? Can you say the thing in one sentence, or maybe at least in one sentence less than you normally would? I think that's a great first step. Okay, the fourth one is I think thinking things about ourselves like, oh man, I just lack discipline, or I'm unmotivated, or I'm a procrastinator. And we think that's part of our personality. What does that look like? I mean, it looks like procrastinating. So putting things off, delaying things, even things you genuinely want to do. It can look like self-sabotage. So it's like, I know I want to nourish my body in a different way, and I go out and I buy healthy groceries and I do a meal plan, but then all of a sudden Monday goes okay, but then Tuesday, Wednesday roll around and I'm hiding in the pantry eating Oreos. I've never done that, but I've heard of it. It might show up like a heaviness. Like a lot of times people who run this pattern just feel stuck, or momentum is so hard to come by, or just starting things feels really disproportionately hard. A lot of times it's just an internal narrative of man, I don't know why I just can't get this done. I'm not motivated enough. I don't have enough discipline. But the reframe is that very often times, especially when I see this in the women I work with, it's not that they lack motivation. That's not the problem. It's not that they lack discipline. That's not the problem either. It's that it's a dorsal vagal shutdown. It's actually a nervous system state. So the nervous system's most protective state, actually. So the one where it goes into fight or flight didn't resolve whatever it is our nervous system thinks is going on out there. So our system just kind of like, boop, plays dead, taps out in order to conserve energy. So our cortisol regulation gets disrupted, our cognitive function drops, our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that helps us plan things and get things done or get things started at least, goes quiet. And it feels like our body is being lazy, you guys, but we're actually rationing. And a lot of times this comes from, again, it can come from a lot of different places, but it can come from a history of chronic overextension. That was true for me. Like I was pushing for so long that my nervous system eventually was like, all right, you're not going to pay attention to, the gut issues and the skin issues and the insomnia and the irritability and the anxiety and and I could go on and on and on. Then we're tapping out. We're going to pull the e-brake. We're shutting this down. You're going to go postpartum into the deepest burnout of your life. And you're going to think that you're dying. That might be true. Or it could be also from an early environment where taking action wasn't safe, right? Maybe, and this could be long before you have conscious memory, explicit memory. It could be you were 2 years old and every time you said no or that you didn't want to do something, you were chastised for it. Or every time you tried to take action, it was shut down, right? You tried to tie your shoes by yourself and your parents were like, oh, you're taking too long. I'm just going to do it, right? Or you tried to choose your own outfit and you got made fun of for, the outfit that you put together wasn't matching or whatever it was, right? Like maybe there's just these moments as a kid where you tried to take action and it didn't go well for you. So staying small, staying undetected, flying under the radar, even just being frozen and doing nothing, that was a strategy that worked a lot better. So you did it again, right? And then you did it again, and then you did it again. And now you're 30s, 40s, and you're like, man, what is wrong with me? I feel like I lack discipline or motivation. No, there's something so much deeper going on there, okay? So if that one resonates for you, it feels counterintuitive, but I would encourage you not to try to push through it with willpower because that usually backfires and I think it adds shame on top of depletion. So instead, could you try one really small physical action with no productivity attached? So what I mean is move your energy, move your body, okay? Can you go take a short walk outside, 5 minutes around the block? Can you just slide off the couch or off your chair or off your bed and stretch on the floor? Can you do some jumping jacks and some air squats? Can you jump on, I don't know, grab a hula hoop in your garage? Like, I don't care what you do. But moving your energy is one of the best ways to start to break out of this pattern. The goal isn't necessarily to get anything done per se or be productive. It's to gently signal to your body that energy is available and it's actually safe to use. Okay. And then the last one I want to talk about today is like zoning out and checking out. This is probably a hallmark of the navigator pattern. What does it look like? It can look like, and I think all of us probably experience this in some capacity, but a lot of times it looks like going somewhere else mentally, like just spacing out anytime things start to feel overwhelming, right? So it's like I'm standing in my kitchen and I'm realizing that 15 minutes have passed and I was not listening to anything that my kids were saying. I was just like mindlessly stirring the pot, okay? Or it feels like you're, watching life from the outside, looking in. And, we can call it dissociation, call it whatever you want. But it's a nervous system feature. And when the input exceeds what our system can process in the moment, i.e. we're beyond our capacity for stimulation, our brain creates distance as a buffer. Okay. So it's not that it's like protective. It's not that it's not protective. It's actually doing it to protect you. It's not something that you need like a diagnosis for. This is not pathological. But in most everyday instances, it's just like, whoa, there's overwhelm. Our brain, there's a rush of energy to the top of our head that feels like fear and overwhelm, and we just kind of shut down. What's happening in our nervous system? It's just our nervous system's way of saying like, whoa, whatever's happening right here in the present around me, it's too much. Okay. Right now it's too much. And it creates this kind of external, this exit, right? We can like leave, even though we don't have to physically leave, we leave mentally or we leave emotionally. A lot of times it can come from an environment that was really overstimulating. So maybe you grew up in an environment that felt really overstimulating. Maybe you grew up in an environment where your own caregivers were kind of detached from the present and they were not really connected to their bodies and they were kind of spaced out and checked out. And that's what you grew up around. Or maybe it felt really chaotic and it was just easier for you to like escape as a kid, right? Maybe you escaped into music or art or like you read books or whatever, just to be anywhere but here. Your nervous system had no way to maybe like physically get out when something felt overwhelming. So it just kind of learned to check out, right? To leave mentally instead. So if that feels true for you, I just want you to start noticing when you've checked out. Okay. The move isn't to like force yourself back. The move isn't to like shame yourself or be like, oh my gosh, here we go, I'm doing it again. The move is gentle orienting, right? What are some really gentle ways you can bring yourself back into your body, into the present moment? So it might look like, even right now, right? Is there anything that you can taste? Maybe you have a taste in your mouth of the last thing you ate, right? I just ate an Oreo actually. So I have the taste of an Oreo in my mouth. But maybe you have the taste of your coffee this morning still in your mouth. Maybe it's toothpaste. Maybe it's your lunch. Maybe it's something else, right? That's a sense that you can kind of zoom in on, and it'll bring you back to the present moment. Maybe it's just like naming some things you can see or feel or hear around you. Those are really low stakes, low sensory information that you can start to just take in to tell your nervous system like, hey, we're okay. Hey, it's safe to come back, right? To come back into the present. We don't have to stay checked out. All right. Those are 5. Here's like, if we're going to put a bow on this whole thing, here's what I want you to take from this. None of these traits, if you will, are who you are. I don't want you to wear any of these as labels of like, oh, I'm just, and then fill in your trait. Okay. These are all adaptations that your nervous system has learned to do probably very early on, automatically, and for good reason. And the moment you can start to see them clearly, right? Probably started before today, but maybe today even brought out some more light on this, shed some more light on it. Really see it, not just intellectually like understanding it, but starting to notice if you drop into any of these, or maybe these are things you've called yourself before. Once you start to see it more clearly, you've already started to loosen its grip, okay? So if you want to know which of these is probably running the show for you, and which capacity pattern you tend to drop into when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, go take that quiz. It's in the show notes. Few minutes, it's free. And then it'll tell you what, is probably your primary pattern, and you can, look around and see the other ones and see if any of them also resonate. And then come back on Friday. We're kind of going to do a part 2 on this, and we're going to take it a little bit deeper. But thanks for being here today, believing this was helpful and eye-opening. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't taken the What's Your Capacity Pattern quiz yet, that is your next step. It'll tell you which of the 5 capacity patterns is driving your dysregulation, your exhaustion, your reactions, your stress, all of it. So you know exactly where to focus your energy first. It's free. It'll take you 2 minutes. The link for the quiz is in the show notes. And then come back on Friday for one practical tool, the high cap move to take into your week, because putting the stuff into practice is what is actually going to change things. All right, I'll see you on Friday.